Hi, it's Joe Glines. Today we're going to review how in SPSS you can open dozens, hundreds, it doesn't really matter, how many text files and save them into SPSS format. Of course, the format has to be the same, the structure of the data that you're importing. So I have, in this folder, I have, I think, 22 files. And I have a macro that shows how I actually generated these I randomly split them into groups if you want to do the reverse. So I'll give you a link to that. But in this file, let's say you keep getting files from people and you have hundreds of files or something, you need to import them all, merge them. But first, of course, you have to import them into SPSS and save them. And so here's 1, 2, and 3, and you can see each of them, the headers are the same. It's hard to tell from this, but let's say if we view white space, you can see they're tab delimited. Okay, all three are tab limited. They have company name, city, state, blah, blah, blah in it. Doesn't really matter. The one thing I do want to point out, though, is the length of the strings, because in SPSS you have to define how wide you want the string. That's going to be an important thing to think about when we're writing our macro. So let me go ahead and close these guys. And the first thing I do is I pick a file and I'm going to open it. And so I just copied the path there. I'm going to hit paste. Now, I could hit open here and later hit paste, but if I hit paste here, it'll make sure it defaults to sending it to the syntax window. And it says, is there enough format? No. Variable names at the top of your file? Yes. Whoever sets the defaults in these, they really got to work on it, because most files have headers in them. And here, each line represent, starts at 2. If you should be familiar with this probably, but basically I'm just taking the defaults of most stuff. All right, here we go. So it's a tab delimited. I'll put double quotes just in case they're in there. I don't think they are. And now we can start seeing the structure, right? This next one, now here's the important part, right? This is saying, hey, for your company field, if I set this at 10, it's going to truncate this at 10 characters. If I set it at 2000, it even though it doesn't increase the file size, it'll still make the column wide. You can shrink it, of course, but what I do as a rule of thumb is I double what they give me. The default is, and the reason why is because this import file right now is just looking at this one file, right? In any of these other files, maybe there's ones that are actually wider, and I just like to play it safe, and I, as a rule of thumb, double what number I get there. And generally speaking, it works out fine. So this one I'll do 30. I do kind of round it too. So this one's a numeric field, numeric. That's all fine. Hit next. And now see, if I hadn't hit paste before, this would have been no, but it's default yes. I don't want to cache it. It's just an extra line. I'm going to hit finish. And what that did was it wrote the syntax. I'm going to bring it into its own window here. It gave me the syntax. And the first thing I recommend is you actually run it and make sure that it opens it and take a quick look, right? You know what, let's also just because it'll make things look a little easier, and it's some nice code to know. I'm going to add an extra line here, change width. Oops, sorry. These are hot strings, by the way. So I'm going to make all 5 and company, I'll make 10, and city, well, you know what, let's just make company and city 10. Now, when we go back to our data file, you see it adjusted how wide, not the actual width of the string variable. Let me point this out. Not this, right? Not the width of how wide it can be. It's this one, how wide the columns are, just a visible thing. And so this way, since it'll be in my macro, it'll always get applied. And that's that. All right. So the import worked. Obviously, we didn't save it. And you know what? Let's go ahead, and that's a good thing, is we're gonna generate the syntax to save it. So file, save as. It's going to default to that same folder. I don't really care what this is because I'm just going to get the syntax. So I'm going to hit paste, and down here, this is the syntax to save that. Right? So this is the syntax for opening it, and I'm going to merge them into fewer rows. I'll put that on the same row because it doesn't matter. So here are our variables. This is going to make it take the focus. This changes the width. and then saving it. Okay, so we have that for opening 1, right? And of course you could copy each of this. I could copy this whole thing, paste it, save it, and keep renaming this every time, which of course gets tedious. You know, if you have 3 files and it's only a few variables, fine. But when you have 100 variables in your file, this is really tall. Or you have 1,000 files. It's not the approach you want to take, right? I think that's pretty obvious. And if I actually ran this, you'd see it would save it as blah.suv in this folder. Okay, so far, nothing is really confusing here. I've just used the GUIs to help generate the syntax for importing a file. Now, the next step is we're going to quote-unquote macrotize this. And when I say that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adopt this and I'm going to turn it into a macro. So I have a hot string that just dumps up some of the code that does that for me. And what I'm doing here is now this is where this just is some code that I insert into all my macros. So when I want to search for macros, I can know that this is a macro. This define command, let's call this opener. Well, open, yeah, whatever. It could be opener. Open sav. There we go. Because it does both. It opens it and saves it. And I'm going to rename this down here. So up here, I'm defining open sav, right? And then down here, this is where I'm going to call it, outside of the end define. So everything between the define and end define is my macro. This again is just to help me visually and later if I'm searching. But this is where I call it. And this line just empties the output window, which is handy. And then I have these couple things up here, which I'm not going to get into this video, but there are I think 3 or 4 different types of ways you can use macros, of whether they're tokens or command in or within certain characters. It's been a while since I used those. For the most part, I either use command in or tokens. And I don't need either of these. These were just examples to remind myself of how to actually call it. And basically, when you first, let's start working on it here. So up in here, var, we're going to need at least 2 parameters. We're going to need the path. It's going to be 1. And then I'm going to copy this because the other one I want to be the same type. And this one I want to be path and file name. So I'm going to be, I want to break those apart because I want to be able to keep the path on its own, and then I also want to be able to have just a file name, no extension, and that'll be more obvious here in a moment. So first, let's come down into here, and by the way, let's see, so let me update my macro call here to our path equals and file name. Notice here, 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 and here, there's no exclamation point in front of the tokens, the thing that the variable that I'm using for the macro to hold the value. But inside the macro call, and this is what is to remind me, that's why I put these in here. It's like, oh yeah, inside my macro call, I will use an exclamation point in front of them. And so this one, I'm going to adopt, I'm going to first move this out of the way a little bit. I'm going to put in path plus file. Oh, and look, I already forgot it there, right? And that's it. This often, you know, even for me, and I do this a fair amount, I got to go back and I write the code and have to tweak it, look at, try to run it, doesn't work, figure out what I did wrong, and then fix it. Plus, now here, I'm gonna, oh no, that is the file name, so I want to get rid of that. I want to have just that, so I'm just leaving the extension. Okay, and I'm doing that because down here, I'm going to have the same thing. I'm going to borrow from this path and file name. So I'm going to get rid of that. I like using double quotes instead of single quotes, but it doesn't really matter. There. Okay. So now, with any luck, this will work the way I hope it will. But if not, we just go and tweak it. Okay. So, but of course, I have to fill in some of the parameters I have borrowed before, and it looks like I deleted them entirely. So what this was h:/temp/files, I believe. Yeah. And then let's go ahead and get this one. Alright, now I have to, whenever you're doing it, you have to, in order for the macro to work, you have to first run it so it's in memory for SPSS. So I'm going to run this, and there shouldn't be any errors there. No, I didn't have any errors in my output window. Let me bring it over. So here's the output window, but I'm going to, well, I'll put it here, and it'll pop back up. Now I'm going to run this. And with any luck, you know what, let's even do this. So I got rid of the data file I had opened, and now it's just blank. So now when I run this, oh, look at that. Wow, it even worked. Often I do have to play with it a bit. So it opened that data file, it saved it as the rand_1.sav. Let's look in here. Oh, no, I forgot that I didn't get the S in there, so yeah, it's missing. So I'm surprised I didn't give it an error, but yep, I truncated it from here. So now if I just recalled this, it wouldn't change anything, even though I changed it here. Why is that? Because I need to go redefine my macro. So I'm going to run this whole thing here. Now I run it. Now I can see there's the dot in here, and now over in this view, see how I have both, right? But I can go ahead and get rid of this one. And now, back in here, I can just do this, right? And because I had broken apart the extensions, all I have to do is swap out here we go. Swap out this little bit, the file name, no extension, and it'll automatically run this in this folder, run the whole thing, everything between here and here, and within that, of course, I've told it to import the file, tweak it a little bit, save it as that one with just the name here, and then, so what I could do is come in here, let me go ahead, just for fun, I'm going to get rid of this. Alright, it's blank. I'm going to delete those two. And then, so here's one approach. As you come in here, you get all of these. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go into, let's say, Excel. Oops, wrong button. Paste. What? Try this again. Why in the world is it just copying a few? Weird. Alright, let me go to here. That is far out, man. I don't know why Excel, it was copying them, but just Excel, when I was pasting them, it wasn't pasting all of them. So now I'm going to take this, cut them from here. Let's see if I can paste it into Excel. Yeah, okay. That is bizarre. I'm going to sort it. Oh, it is sorting it? Okay, well, should have had zeros in front of the ones to help with that. But that is the name of the file, so I don't want to mess with that. And what I would do is I am really lazy. Okay, so what I do is I come in here, and I'm going to copy this, paste that there. So all of that stays the same every time. And then in here, I'm going to take this, and within these cells, I'm going to replace all of that with that. Okay. And now I can, just for convenience sake, I'm going to put this over here. This will make a lot more sense here in a minute. And actually, is that B? Yeah, I should have got rid of these guys. Okay, hopefully it's starting to, you're getting what I'm doing here. And I need this at the end. And of course I could actually write these in. Oh, that's always a little problematic. There we go. And now here I'm going to say this equals this and this and this. Now, yeah, that looks right. Let me come back over to here. Let me find one of those without one especially, since I already have written that. I'm going to compare it to that one. Oh, look at that. I forgot. I got to get rid of the .txt. But when I do that, let me see. Yes, that looks identical. Okay, so come back to Excel. And in here, I'm going to replace .txt with nothing. Alright, and that 22 makes me feel good that I actually did that correctly. Do I have the right one here? Yep. So now I'll copy this, come back into here, paste it, and then let me find the 1 again just to make sure, although I feel pretty good about that. Yep. So now I should be able to just run these. The order, of course, doesn't really matter, right? So I'm going to run all of these. And if we look in here, well, we can see the number here changing, right? Incrementing. Okay. Now we have our 22. Yep, 22 files. All have been imported and saved as SAV files. And then, of course, odds are high that I'd probably want these actually appended to each other, right? So after I've done that, then, first off, I would save this, but I'm not going to in this case. So I'm going to, first I'm going to, this is a macro I have that will open a file depending on the path that I've defined it to, but this one should, I think I've defined that path already, so we shall see. So I'm going to open the very first one. Yeah, oh, no. Let's try that. There we go. Okay, so now open that, and then what I want to do is append file. So this add file path, and notice right here, this is where I would put in, I would change this to be 2. Rand 2, and here again, just because I'm lazy, I would come over here to Excel. I'm looking at that. I think actually, well, I'm going to borrow this, put that down here. I'm going to borrow this part, put that right here. And then I need this to go here. Let me get a little screenshot and look at this over there. So this will be the same everywhere. That is good. That's good. .sav quote. Oh, that actually, I think that might be it. So this is going to equal this and this and this. Copy that, come back into here. Actually, I should check because I probably added the second one twice. It's here. I'm going to cut it and move it up, and let's see if I got it exactly right. That does look right. Okay. So now I open the first one, and then it's going to import. Oh, look at that! I appended the second one also, which I of course don't want to do. So now, theoretically, I can run all of these, and what we should see is before there was 100 in each file, and now because we had 100 in each file, there should be around 20. Yep. Nearly 2100. There wasn't 100 in the last file. So, show in. That's a simpler way to say, okay, there's 2080 files. I've just appended all of those, basically merged them together, stacked them on top of each other, and I can make sure, because I know before I did this, I made sure there were no company names in there more than once. So it's just company. This is a macro I have that shows duplicates. So there's 2,179 unique company names. I guess one was blank. Let's see. That seems odd to me. Why is this saying 2080? Maybe there must be a row that's just not showing. It's blank. But I don't know. That's odd. Anyway, so that's how you can merge together however many SPSS or sorry, text files or whatnot, right? Whatever you're opening. Just be sure you when you write the initial part, you make sure that the widths of strings, you take into account the other files, it might be wider. And then I like to parse out the extensions, and that way I can just reuse the file name itself and not have to have this part even longer. And I include the path and make sure all the files obviously are in the same directory. And then if I wanted to, I could have added another parameter up here. Let's call this one in path. And I'm going to add another parameter up here, and I'm going to make this one, yeah, you guessed it, out path. And so in path, I just need to make sure that in here, I change it here. Case doesn't matter, by the way. In path, but here, I'm going to make this one out path. Okay? And so, and of course here, I need to change this to be in. We'll just do the first three. So in path is here. And let me make some room in here. I'll go back. Let's do it on this one. Out path. So now I'm going to borrow this. Alright, now, of course, there is no out directory. So let me go to here and go up one, temp. Alright, and now when I gotta, of course, if I just run this, it still thinks it's the original macro. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to redefine it and then run the whole thing. And now, so for those three, I don't know, it did two. 1, 2. What was wrong with the third? Oh, I see. Sorry. So it did that one twice. I don't know how I managed that, but anyway, we'll do all three. 1, 2, 3, and the out. So that's how you can have your in folder and your out folder in different paths, right? If you want to automatically separate them, which when you have, 100 or 1,000 files, it is very convenient to have them automatically merged out. It's just easier to track to see what's going on. But that's it. Thanks.